everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for coming back. If you're new here, my name is Summer and I upload a brand new true crime video every weekend, and then something to do with makeup, health, or something just a little bit different towards the beginning of each week. Today's video is going to be about life with my ileostomy, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my own experiences, what an ileostomy is, some like frequently asked questions, and just give you a little bit of insight because I'm quite open and honest when it comes to my ileostomy and my other health conditions. But I think that even though I've tried to raise awareness for a long time, it still isn't like set in stone that people really know about ileostomies or colostomies, and I think it's something that's really important to me, but I think important to hundreds and thousands of other people as well. The main reason that I like to raise awareness is because of things like using a disabled toilet. You can see me here, I don't particularly look disabled. Most days I can walk okay. I don't, to look at me in the street or whatever, I don't look like a disabled person, but I am. I also have a blue badge to park the car in, and this, I don't know if it's the same in other countries in the UK, but a blue badge is a badge that you just place on the dashboard of the car, and you can park in disabled parking spaces, so like at the supermarket or at the cinema, in the city centre, whatever. You can park. It's usually much closer to the building and the spaces are a lot wider as well. I mainly have this because of my POTS syndrome, which is a condition that makes me faint, usually when I stand up, and it is helpful for my ileostomy as well, because if I urgently need to get to a toilet and I have to park like a 5-minute walk away, it isn't helpful at all. So just having that little bit of extra comfort and reassurance can save any embarrassment for me, for anybody else. And yeah, it's just like a little bit of a creature comfort, knowing that I've got that option if I need to take it. So what is an ileostomy? Well, an ileostomy is essentially, it means that you poo from your tummy. It's made by the surgeon cutting like a hole in your stomach, pulling the end of your bowel through it, stitching your bowel in place, and then that's it. That is called a stoma. So essentially the bowel will stick out usually around an inch. So you have about an inch of bowel on the outside of your tummy. And if it's made from the ileum, which is the end of the small intestine, it's called an ileostomy, or if it's made from your colon or your large bowel, it's called a colostomy. But they're both called stomas. So just like if the bowel was inside my tummy, I would have no control on like where my food is, how I'm digesting it, just like you wouldn't. And it's the same with having your bowel on the outside. I have no control over when poo comes out of it, basically. It just comes out when it wants to. Sometimes it's not at the ideal moment. For example, when I'm changing my ileostomy bag, that really isn't helpful. But yeah, that's just part and parcel of it, really. I have my ileostomy because I was diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease at the age of 14. Inflammatory bowel disease consists of Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, and then there's other less known conditions such as indeterminate colitis or Crohn's colitis. But they're all essentially diseases of the digestive system. They aren't curable. They're autoimmune diseases, so it's really just your immune system attacking your digestive system. It's incredibly painful, and they're very, very serious conditions. I think a lot of the time, because inflammatory bowel disease is shortened to IBD, people get it confused with IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, and they're very, very different. With irritable bowel syndrome, the symptoms are awful, and kind of similar to inflammatory bowel diseases, but you don't actually have any disease. So with ulcerative colitis, the large bowel and rectum are affected. They can become diseased and ulcerated and bleed and just ugh. And with Crohn's disease, any part of the digestive system can become ulcerated and diseased and bleed, just like with ulcerative colitis. With Crohn's disease, you can get fistulas, which are kind of like little tunnels. So if your bowel is really severely diseased, it will make like a tunnel from the last healthy part to a different healthy part, but then you can get fistulas to other organs in your body from your bowel or to the outside of your body. It's just really not nice. I was diagnosed at 14. I had the entire of my colon or large intestine, whatever you want to call it, and my rectum was severely ulcerated. And I also had disease in my stomach as well. This led the doctors to believe that I had ulcerative colitis, but they couldn't explain why I had disease in my stomach, because you wouldn't find this with ulcerative colitis. Usually it would just affect the large bowel or colon. But then at the beginning of 2010, when I was nearly 16, I became very, very unwell and I developed disease throughout my small intestine. The doctors are still unsure. They're kind of like, well, is this Crohn's? Is this colitis? My body just can't seem to make up its mind of what it actually wants to have wrong with it. In 2009, I made the decision that I'd had enough of this awful medication that was being used to treat my IBD, and I decided to opt for surgery, which my doctors were kind of trying to persuade me into. But, you know, at the age of 15, this isn't something that's nice for anybody of any age. But at 15, you know, I just stopped my GCSEs at school. I was in like year 10, year 11, and I was coming up to leaving. I was thinking about my prom, about what I wanted to do when I left. And, you know, it was at a time where I had lots of friends, and it couldn't have come at a worse time, honestly. But I decided to have the surgery that my doctors desperately wanted me to have. And this is where they took away 90% of my large intestine. They left my rectum in place and the last 10% of my large intestine, and they created a temporary ileostomy for me. Then after that, I was really unwell. I'm not going to go into it too much because it isn't really to do with my ileostomy. If you want to know more about my story, then I have another video on my life with IBD, which I will put in the description just below, so you can go to that and have a watch of that if you want to. But to cut a long story short, I ended up having my ileostomy reversed. So they reconnected my small bowel to my bum, basically. Then at the beginning of 2015, I had my permanent ileostomy made. This was about 2 months before my 21st birthday, and I just decided that when I had my temporary ileostomy, it was probably the best that I'd felt since initially being diagnosed. And I was fed up of going to the toilet like 20 times a day. I had no life. I was literally going out in the day, starving myself until I got home because I didn't want to have to use the toilet. I was so thin. And I just thought it was no way to live. So I decided that I wanted to have my ileostomy made permanent. And nearly 4.5 years on, it's still the best decision that I've ever made. It's not nice living with an ileostomy, but it is what it is, and you can either take it or leave it. I'm happy that I'm healthy and that I can do just about anything now. In fact, I can't think of anything that I'm unable to do because of my ileostomy. So, like I said, they bring the end of your bowel to the outside of your stomach, stitch it in place. That's your stoma, ileostomy or colostomy. And because I have no control over my bowel or my poo, I have to wear a bag over this. And when I was first having my ileostomy back in 2009, I was thinking, oh my god, this is going to be like a huge shopping bag stuck to my front, or do they put like a tube in my belly and then a bag hangs off it? Or I had no idea like how it worked. And lots of people have actually asked me about this, and they've said, oh sorry, this is a really silly question, but actually it isn't, because before I knew anything about stomas, I had no idea how an ileostomy bag worked. I'm just going to put a picture up for you now, or maybe a couple of pictures, just to show you what my tummy looks like while I'm wearing my bag. I was considering putting a picture of probably not my stoma, but a stoma. But I know that some people might not want to see it, which is absolutely fine and totally reasonable. But if you want to Google what a stoma looks like, then go for it. I personally don't think it's gruesome, but it is the intestine on the outside of your body, essentially. It kind of looks like a little, if you cut a little tomato in half, I think it looks like, you might not, but that's what it is to me, a little tummy tomato. Poo isn't really poo, it doesn't look like your poo, I can assure you. The large intestine is responsible for absorbing all of the liquid in your food, which is why poo is solid. Well, most of the time for most people, but because I don't have that, my poo is very watery. It's I mean, I've got no airs and graces, but to put it bluntly, the thickest that my poo gets is like porridge. Because of this, it means that I can change my bag like every 2 days, so every other day probably. Sometimes I change it every day, but it's a bit of a pain, and sometimes I just can't be bothered if I've no need to. But the bags are drainable. I know that some people wear non-drainable ones. They prefer to change the bag every time it needs emptying or changing. But for me personally, I find that if I change it too much, my skin gets sore because I'm peeling the bag off and then sticking it on and then peeling it off again, and it can make my skin kind of sore. So I prefer to change it every other day, but because the bags that I use are drainable, I probably empty my bag 6 or 7 times a day, and it literally takes 30 seconds. So I'm just going to talk you through how I change my bag. I have some of my products here. So what I do before I start doing anything is prepare. So this is what we call a base plate, and this is my stencil. So I mean, they kind of look similar on there to you, but if you see there, that is, I think you can kind of see. So the stencil is cut to the size and shape of my stoma, so that's about it. If I put my hand next to it, you can see it's really not very big, and I have tiny hands as well. So I just put this on top of the base plate, and then I'll draw around here, and if I move it up a little bit, you can probably see, so it isn't that much different. And then I just cut out where I've drawn around. Then I will start by peeling off my stoma bag. So the base plates, essentially, if you peel it here like this side is really sticky, and that just sticks onto your tummy, and if you pull this at the top, it's easy to peel off as well. But I can assure you, I have never ever had a bag just magically pull itself off. You have to really like apply force to it, and I don't think I've ever heard of anybody saying that the bag has randomly peeled off. So I peel off my base plate and the whole bag comes off with it, and then I'll just get some like dry wipes and wet wipes, just clean around my stoma, clean around my skin, throw those into a black bag, and then I'll use this wipe which is, you can't see that, which is like a medical adhesive remover type thing. The medical adhesive remover just removes any kind of like sticky residue that might be left on from my bag being stuck to it, and it just like prepares a clean and clear surface for the new base plate to stick onto. I'll give it a quick wipe with a wet wipe again just to remove the adhesive remover, and then I will use this wipe, which is called Cavalon No Sting Barrier Film, and it's basically just like a skin protector. So like I said, with peeling the bags on and off all the time, it can make your skin sore. I think it just gives it like a extra little layer. It's kind of like a tacky film type thing, and it just essentially protects your skin. Once that dried, I will stick on my base plate. So like I said, it peels from the back, and then this, let's pretend my hand is my stomach, will stick on there like that, and it's 100% stuck on. There is absolutely no panicking about it coming off. I know that some people have problems with it sticking to the skin. I personally don't, but I think this is only really a problem if like it's a hot day or something. And then the bags, so I'll show you how I empty it first. It's basically here, it just opens like this. So it opens there and you can drain it. And then you roll this up and Velcro it. I've never ever had it come undone. It's really good. And then you can just tuck it up there, or you can tuck it like under there, and just to make it a bit smaller. And it just Velcros there as well. So sticking the bag onto the base plate. So there's the base plate, and then the bag literally just goes on there and you press it down and it holds. So I'll show you, that's a flat surface. So is the bag, and you essentially just peel this off to reveal the sticky surface, and it sticks on there. As simple as that. What foods can I eat? I can eat most things really. The only things that I really struggle with are foods that have skins on them, like apples, pears, potato. I either have to like peel the skin or just don't eat it, which is a shame because I love potato skin and I love apples. Sweet corn is something that I'm supposed to be careful with because I have had a blockage before with it, but I love sweet corn and I haven't had any problems in a while, so it's a risk that I shouldn't take but do take. But because I have lots of scar tissue in my tummy, these foods can cause blockages for me or just make me have loads and loads of pain. But everybody that has an ileostomy is different, so just because this is how I manage mine and these are the products that I use, I doubt that there's another person who uses exactly the same products as me in exactly the same order. It varies from person to person. Everybody has their own unique way of managing their stoma. And I think that I've kind of covered everything. If there's anything that you would like to know that I haven't mentioned, then please drop me a message in the comments below. You can contact me on Instagram, it's @summervalentine_, and please remember that no question is silly, but please don't ask me anything that could be offensive. It isn't offensive to me, but I know that it might be to other people that might read it. So just kind of be aware. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up, share it for me, subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.